If a deal seems too good to be true, it probably is. This undeniable truth has haunted mankind for all of history. There are too many sellers out there, too many people looking, that it's just not possible to find a god-tier deal before everyone else. But what if you did find it? What if you did find gold before the gold rush? For every 1,000 blunders, there's sure to be one jackpot, right? Today, I'd like to tell you about the time that I did find it, that I did strike gold, that I found it before everyone else. Today, I'd like to tell you about the legend of GoodwillFinds.
I think it's fair to say that Goodwills are mainstream in American culture. On one end, they provide a low-cost shopping option for those in need and generally support a more sustainable consumer experience. And on the other end, Goodwill stores are the place to find crazy deals on rare or coveted items. And not just Goodwills, but thrift shops in general.
Thrifting has become a widespread activity and is far more mainstream than it used to be.
I remember in the early 2010s when I almost never heard of non-low-income people thrifting. But then a little song dropped in 2012 named Thrift Shop, and slowly the activity gained popularity until it broke its taboo and turned into what it is today. I'm half joking about the Macklemore song, but if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have gotten into thrifting.
Now, if you ask me, thrifting was better in the 2010s. It was the perfect way to find rare and uncommon items, and people didn't know about it.
Prices were significantly lower back then, and items weren't immediately sniped by resellers. Not that I wasn't also reselling myself, but it was just different. To me, it was something I did that wasn't mainstream and brought me some amazing finds. But let's step back a minute, because everything I'm talking about is purely anecdotal. Although I thought it wasn't mainstream, thrifting was still pretty big throughout the 2000s, and it was only in my experience that it was taboo. The Macklemore song probably didn't contribute that much, and looking at Google Trends data for both thrifting and thrift shop, we can see that pretty much checks out. On top of that, what I considered to be a steal probably pales in comparison to what people were finding years before me. The truth is that the idea of thrifting has always been pretty common, and has always been better in the past. Before Goodwill outlet stores were big, more or less the same experience could be found at a flea market or swap meet. I also frequent flea markets and find that they offer a slightly better experience than thrift shops do, even today. But the fact of the matter is that both thrift shops and flea markets aren't perfect. Thrifting is time-consuming. If you even want a chance of consistently finding good items, you'll need to spend countless hours searching through different stores.
Your best bet is finding out exactly when stores restock so you can snipe the good stuff before it's gone. But even then, it's not guaranteed. You can't predict that anything will be donated and put out in the shelves. So if you go in looking for one specific item, you might as well not even try.
Even if you do get lucky, you still have to deal with pricing. Nowadays, Goodwill prices are determined based on internet sales, so even if they're slightly better than what you'd find online, they likely aren't worth the time commitment. And with things like AI price checkers becoming common, the problem will only get worse.
Since thrifting became popular, many people caught on that there might be ways to exploit their system. With thousands of stocked items on the shelves, there's sure to be something of worth, right?
So a lot of people thrift solely to resell. Usually known as scanner sellers, these people will scan every single barcode they can find in the store, and if anything makes them more than $10, they'll buy it to put on their Amazon store.
If you ever see someone doing this, I recommend you crop dust the fuck out of them.
There's nothing inherently wrong with this, nor is there anything wrong with reselling, but it's changed Goodwills from a charitable place to donate clothes to a place to exploit and make money off of.
I've visited several hundred thrift shops in the past decade, and I'd say that my success rate is probably less than 5%. And I'd say less than half of those items were ones that I kept, the other half being ones that I resold. The bottom line is that thrifting isn't just some legendary solution for saving money. It's a trade-off, just like everything else. If you want a good deal on a rare item, be prepared to lose a lot of time, money, and enjoyment.
The alternative to thrifting is buying retail, and for anything you can no longer buy retail, the alternative is buying online. eBay is a valid solution to the availability problem, but at the expense of pricing. The vast majority of sellers on the platform look up all their prices, creating more or less the same issue that thrifting faces. You can try other platforms. I've used Mercari a lot, which has a much less saturated user base. It's not uncommon to find great deals on it, but there are issues in other ways that make it worse. If you're buying retail, assuming that the item is currently being sold and is in stock, you completely remove the issue of availability. But that of course comes at the expense of pricing being at its highest, assuming that the item doesn't resell for more. If we can find things cheap, it's not convenient. But if it's convenient, you can't find it cheap.
Goodwill themselves tried to remediate this issue by introducing their own online storefront, Shop Goodwill.
The website allowed Goodwill outlet stores to sell their donated items online, and this sounds like a great idea. It would remove most of the trouble of thrifting while still keeping prices low, and you'd be supporting a good cause. Unfortunately though, this is not the case. While rare items are listed every day, pricing doesn't follow what you might be able to find at a Goodwill retailer. Buy it now items are usually listed at around market value, and for anything that's bidding, well, once people learned about the site, the prices would shoot up to around what they were selling for on eBay.
On top of that, shipping is usually considerably higher than what you'd find on other platforms, making a potentially good deal a lot worse.
The site often offers 1-cent shipping, but I've never once seen something I cared about listed with this deal. Maybe if people didn't know about the site, there wouldn't be as many users to bid prices up as high.
So it looks like we're at a standstill here. Pricing and convenience will always go against each other, and if we find a platform that gets around it, it's usually too well known to work anymore. We need to find somewhere that has cheap pricing, that is convenient, and is unknown to the general public. And that brings us to the legend that is GoodwillFinds.
So one day I was looking for deals online. I forget what I was looking for, it was either video games or manga. And you guys know me, I hate spending. So I'm doing my rounds, I checked eBay, Facebook Marketplace, Mercari, Craigslist, everything. And eventually I said screw it and looked on Shop Goodwill. I've never gotten something from the website, but maybe today's the day. Of course, there's nothing cheap. It's all eBay pricing.
It's maybe 1 a.m., so I'm in it deep that night.
Desperately, I go back to the search results, scroll down a bit, and here I see a site called GoodwillFinds. Now I had never heard of Goodwill making a new online storefront, so I didn't really know what to think. I opened the site, and the pricing was just about what you'd find on eBay. So I went to bed that night and didn't think anything of it. A few days later, I'm back at it. I found the site again, and this time I decided to give it a deeper look. As I started searching, I realized that the pricing isn't actually that bad on paper. A copy of Zelda Ocarina of Time was listed as buy it now for only $20, a good chunk under what it's worth. The only issue is that shipping added another $7, so it was only marginally better than what you'd find on eBay. Right as I'm about to close the site, I see a promotion they're holding at the bottom of the screen. Receive $20 off your first order when you sign up. Huh, that's a pretty good deal. All I have to do is enter my email. So I put it in, wait a few minutes, and there it is. Go back to Ocarina of Time, add to cart, use the code, and it just worked.
$7 for a good condition copy of Ocarina of Time. No hassle, no scams, no nothing. A few days later, it shows up in the mail and it works. Did I just find it? Did I finally find a place that sells old games without egregious pricing?
GoodwillFinds is, like I just said, another official storefront from Goodwill. The site originally launched in October of 2022, but I didn't find it until June of the next year. It's pretty similar to Shop Goodwill, but there are a few key differences. The biggest one is that while Shop Goodwill is primarily focused on bidding-based auctions, GoodwillFinds is exclusively buy it now. This is mainly helpful because it doesn't let the user base control pricing. What I mean is, with no option to outbid other people, pricing is determined solely by the seller.
So if a game is listed way below market value, it's guaranteed to sell at that price.
On top of that, shipping prices are considerably lower than what you'd find on Shop Goodwill, at least in my experience.
This might not be the case for other people, but I have no way of testing that. Other than that, it's more or less the same experience as Shop Goodwill.
Now, if it wasn't for the $20 coupons, the site would be just as bad as Shop Goodwill. I'm speaking subjectively here, so bear with me for a sec.
I am a really cheap person, and I will go extreme lengths just to save $1 on a $10 game. If a game is listed for 15 and it's worth 20, I still won't buy it. There are already so many games that I'm looking for that I probably won't buy it unless it's, I don't know, $5, because that's probably what I would find it for at a physical Goodwill or a flea market.
So if you took away the $20 coupons, I wouldn't find any listings worth it in my mind. There are still some caveats. You can't stack coupons and other deals. Shipping isn't guaranteed to be low, and every time that you wanted a coupon, you'd have to use a new email.
After I used all my main emails, I wasn't quite sure what to do. I tried using some public inboxes online with no success. I didn't really want to make new emails, that's pretty time consuming, and you'd still have to wait for the email to be sent anyways. At this point, I had to turn to ingenuity to solve this problem. I first learned the +1 trick.
If you add plus and a number to the end of your email handle, it'll redirect those emails into your main inbox. So all I had to do is add +1, +2, so on, to the end of my email to get the coupons sent to me. Now I wouldn't have to make a new email every time.
But I wasn't done there. I thought to myself, I should be able to automate this. So I spent 30 minutes in Python and whipped up a bot. Ran it for a few minutes. Perfect. 25 coupons sent straight to my email.
I had done it. I finally found a site where I could find crazy deals. And I did it before it was popular. Needless to say, I was stoked.
All I have to do is wait for something good to be listed and use the coupon. That's it. You might call it greedy, but hey, I'm supporting a good cause, right? Right? I'll touch on that again later. You might think I'd be done there. I have the coupons, what else is there to do? Well, if you think that's greedy, you have no idea what's coming next.
Even with the ability to generate infinite codes, that wasn't the most inconvenient part of the website. Sure, $20 off is great, but I still actually have to find what I'm looking for. I don't want to have to refresh a page 3,000 times a day just to be disappointed when nothing new is listed. I need to automate things. I opened up Python again and made a new bot. This one would be better.
I made it so that anytime a listing is posted under a search keyword that I choose, the bot will send me an email. We're talking within the minute of the listing being posted.
That completely removes the possibility of someone else sniping the listing before me, and also removes having to check the site all the time, provided that the bot stays running on my computer 24/7. A minor inconvenience.
Now that is greedy. I'll put a link to the GitHub repo for the bot in the description, but it's pretty finicky, so beware. Now, somewhat selfishly, let's talk about what I actually found through the site. Now, you're going to notice they're all one of two things, which I'll explain later on. I talked about Ocarina of Time already. I got that for $7. The next two things were both to resell, which I ended up doing a lot of on the site. The first was a lot of Sailor Moon's manga set, almost complete. They were in pretty rough shape, but I paid $15 for them and flipped them for $50 right after. The next thing was a substantially larger lot of Inuyasha's manga, the first 25-ish volumes. I did contemplate keeping them, but it made more sense to sell. Sorry for the bad pictures here as well. After a listing on GoodwillFinds has sold, you can no longer view it or its images, so you'll have to do with these low-quality photos of the receipts. The first manga purchase that I kept was the complete Death Note box set, which I paid $27 for. A bit more than I'd like to have paid, but at just over $2 a volume, I couldn't resist. Next was an almost complete set of Full Metal Alchemist manga, the 3-in-1s. It was 7 of the 9 volumes, and I paid $7. I was going crazy when that happened. Just the idea of paying that little for 7 books was amazing. Unfortunately, the next one is actually a lot that I missed. This was before I had the bot, and consequently was the reason I made it in the first place. Right after I bought the Full Metal Alchemist set, 3 listings popped up that included 36 volumes of Berserk. Had I used the coupons, the total price would have been $50, which is absolutely insane for Berserk. I was at the gym when it happened, so I didn't get them in time to buy. I've been looking for Berserk for a very long time, and missing out on a deal that good was devastating for me. You do not understand how bad it feels. So I wrote the bot that night and never looked back. I found 15 volumes of One Punch Man's manga, which I paid $17 for. Next I found an almost complete set of Rurouni Kenshin's manga, only missing volume 1. I paid $40 for those. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep them yet. I think I'm going to read the first few volumes and then decide from there. And last but not least, a copy of Super Smash Bros. For Nintendo 64, which I paid $10 for. Considering the ridiculous surge in N64 prices in the last few years, I'm happy with that price. In hindsight, I didn't really use the site as much as I could have. My standards for pricing were so high that I missed out on a lot of decent deals.
And on top of that, I never found anything worthwhile other than video games or manga. The whole thing worked out really well for me because I was looking for something that was consistently listed cheap. I don't really know how well it would have worked for other things.
I did actually show the site to a few of my friends, but none of them found anything good, even with the coupons. Maybe this site was only legendary for me.
But supposedly the ones that it worked for the least were actually the participating Goodwill stores. Now everything I'm about to talk about is coming from a Reddit post on r/GoodwillFinds from someone claiming to be an ex-employee. I can't prove the validity of everything here, so take it with a grain of salt.
While the fundamental idea of GoodwillFinds makes sense, the execution did not.
When a user buys something through GoodwillFinds, what they're paying for is the cost of the item, tax, and shipping. But the actual stores have to pay a listing fee, cover whatever shipping is, regardless of how much you paid for shipping, and mostly, pay for whatever site-wide deal or coupon is applied to the order. If you didn't catch what that means, let me spell it out.
It means that any time I use a $20 off coupon, the Goodwill store that I'm buying from has to pay that $20 out of pocket. Now you tell me if that's greedy. I didn't know any better.
If that wasn't bad enough, the participating stores are encouraged to list as much as they possibly can, regardless of quality. This then causes issues with warehousing said items. And with most of these items being garbage, the store isn't going to make anything on them unless the prices are high. And there's even more that I'm not covering. Incorrect pricing, management issues, the website is ridden with bugs, horrible customer service, no access to selling data like gross margins or revenue, and the list keeps going. Another former Goodwill employee said that after his branch made the switch to GoodwillFinds, they saw a 33% loss in revenue that year.
I never thought the idea of a second online Goodwill retailer was a good one, but clearly this was not done right. The thread outlines a lot more that I'm not covering, so I'd recommend you read that on your own, but so many aspects of the site were done poorly, even as a user. Making the stores eat the cost of the $20 coupons is absurd as is, but anyone could have told you that offering free $20 coupons was a horrible idea. They probably did it to bring more people to the site, but I don't think it did that. All it did was let me exploit their site more. So, how do you fix the site while also bringing in new users? Well, you don't.
You might ask me, why make this video in the first place? Why risk losing all the good deals by telling people about it? Well, I'm not the first to talk about it. A bunch of big YouTubers already mentioned it in their videos, but nobody actually listened to that. Like I said, the only reason the website worked for me was because of the specific items I was looking for, the bot, and the coupons. Removing any one of those would be the end of the fun.
And that's exactly what happened. Literally right after I ran the bot, they removed the option to generate $20 coupons, instead replacing it with a 15 off $50 coupon. Maybe someone else can find a use for these coupons, but for me it meant I have to use the ones I have sparingly. I still have 7 of them left, and at the time of writing this script, I planned on just using them all to get rid of them. But wouldn't you know, in between writing the script and making this video, they actually expired. Even though there was no posted expiration date. So, all's well that ends well, right?
With the coupons gone, I can lay the bot to rest, meaning I'll no longer be taking money from Goodwill stores. Hey, they have a Wii listed for $7,000. Might have to cop.
So to finish this off, let's go back to the original idea I proposed. If a deal seems too good to be true, it probably is. Was this the exception? Did GoodwillFinds finally prove me wrong? No, it didn't. Despite the amazing deals, the interesting loopholes, and the general rarity of a site with this much potential, it was too good to be true. Just not for me, but for the Goodwill stores. GoodwillFinds will probably not amount to anything in the future, and will continue to cause problems for any participating store. By the time you're hearing this, I'm willing to bet it's gotten worse. Even if they fixed all the issues they had, the site still won't be any better than Shop Goodwill. So, what was the point? Support your local flea markets. They're better than Goodwill's anyways.